whenever I talk to anybody in agriculture and ask them what are their biggest challenges and stuff, every time it is a legal workforce, because there are so many people working in agriculture in Idaho and across the country that came here illegally but have been working in agriculture for the last 15, 20 years, And what we're trying to do is reform the H-2A visa program, which needs to be reformed because that's where farmers can get foreign labor in after they've tried to advertise those jobs and get Americans in there. And if they can't, then they can use the H-2A visa and stuff. But that's only seasonal work. So in a dairy that's year-round, they don't have access to that kind of stuff. And so we're trying to, with this ag immigration reform bill or the visa reform bill that we've passed in the House 2 years in a row, or 2 Congresses in a row. Haven't been able to get it through the Senate yet, but we're working on it. But it's vitally important to agriculture. And we're not trying to give people amnesty, as some people would claim, or something like that. What we're doing is take these people that are here that essentially have grown up in America and worked in agriculture for a number of years. Give them, you bring them out of the woodwork, make sure they've paid their taxes. You fine them because they did commit a crime coming here illegally 20 years ago or whatever. And you make sure that they don't have a criminal background check, or that they do a criminal background check, they don't have crimes and stuff like that. Then you give a permanent green card so that they can come and go. If their mother dies in Honduras, if they're from Honduras or Mexico or wherever, they can go home to the funeral and then come back to their job. And so you legalize this workforce. It doesn't give them citizenship, but eventually they could apply for citizenship. Somebody told me it'd be like 18 years before they could do that or not, but they could apply for citizenship, but they don't get an advantage from doing it. They have to go to the back of the line just like anybody else would. And to me, that's a reasonable approach to trying to create a legal workforce. I talked to a guy who had a truck driver, worked for him for, I think it was 18 or 19 years he's worked for him. Never had a problem at all. Guy went in to get his driver's license renewed. They renewed his driver's license. Next day they called him and said, "You forgot to fill out this one part of it. Could you come in and fill it out?" He said, "Sure." He came in the next day. The next time his wife and kids heard from him was like 3 days later, and he was in Mexico. That departed. That's not who we are. And so it is a challenge. The problem is what's been happening at the border have made it almost impossible to do any rational immigration reform. And this is a rational bill that I think will work, and I think we'll be able to sell it to the Trump administration, or hopefully we're going to be talking to them about it. But if you got rid of everybody that was here that is technically illegal, it would devastate our agricultural industry, not just in Idaho, but across the country. And, how much are you willing to pay for a gallon of milk?
Man, that very, very well said. Not just our ag industry, but we're talking construction industry. Yep. We're talking hospitality, luxury industry. There are all kinds of industries that we all openly know rely on immigrant workforces. And I do not have, stats on, hey, how many of these people are here legally, illegally. But the idea that it's like, hey, just do it the legal way. Yeah, that works for something that's like, okay, you got 6 months or you got like a 9-month time frame. Like, great, cows need to be milked 24/7, 365. Yeah. That's just the way that industry goes. Maybe you have a little bit of a slowdown in the construction industry in the winter, but you're building houses year round, lest we want to exacerbate the housing crisis.
Well, what you bring up is very interesting. It's not just agriculture where you ask them that what's your biggest challenge, and it's finding labor. Right. It's across every industry I talk to people. You go to Micron. One of their biggest challenges is finding people qualified to do this labor, And so it's with everybody. We decided to focus just on agriculture because when you expand it, then every time you expand it, you're dealing with something else, and pretty soon it gets almost too heavy to handle. Yeah. So we decided to just concentrate it on agriculture, see if we can get it enacted, see if it works, see what changes need to be made after, that didn't work like we thought, let's do this, And then if it's successful, we could expand it to other industries and stuff.
The last time a broad sweeping change like this was enacted was roughly 39 years ago in 86 with Reagan.
Yep.
And he did something very similar to what you're talking about. It's like, look, come out of the shadows. Yep. If you've been here illegally, there's going to be a penalty. If you don't have a criminal background, That's great. You're viable for this. But look, we need to legalize the people that have been here. And of course, people were not happy with it. Some people were not happy with it then because they're like, what about all the people that have been waiting? Yeah, that stinks. Like that's true. But we do find ourselves in a position where the bottom line is we need to maintain our existing workforce and figure out some way to legalize the position so that we don't have people we don't destroy our industries. Yeah. Was there any fallout from the 1986 Reagan decision to do essentially just what you're talking about?
The failure of that decision was there was two parts of it. It was the legalization, and the other part was increased border security. They got the legalization. They never got the increased border security done, which would have helped a lot in our current times if they'd done that. But I don't think anybody's too worried about Trump not enforcing the border and stuff. So you're doing it pretty good there. The illegal crossings have dropped from 11,000 in one day to 460 or something like that. So, but it's a fascinating subject, and people will say to me, well, these people are taking away jobs from Americans. Not really. These are jobs that Americans won't take, frankly. In fact, there was, I think, this a couple of years ago, there were 4,000 openings in the dairy industry across the country. And they tried to get Americans to take those jobs. You know how many Americans took them?
How many?
4. Four they could fill. 3 of them quit within the first week.
Right.
You know, and the other one, I don't know what happened to him. But these are jobs that you can't get Americans to take, and they're necessary jobs. And then people will say to me, well, if these farmers or ranchers or dairymen would pay their employees a decent wage, you ought to see what some of these are getting paid. Because when they come over on the H-2A visa, they have what's called the adverse wage rate impact that they have to pay them. And that's substantial.
And what you have also is if you bring somebody over from a foreign country on an H-2A visa, you have to pay them, I think the base is like $17 an hour. Right. You have to transport them from their country of origin. You have to put them up in housing as well. So, you know, and they're going to be working their tail off in pursuit of, you know, corn production or whatever it might be. Like you have these situations like, look, this is costing the employer some money for sure. But you also, like, who's signing up to go detassel, you know, cow and bull rows of corn, you know, in the sweltering summer heat? Like, people just aren't doing that. But for the people that are coming from out of state, or excuse me, out of the country, you have this great benefit because they're like, hey, my housing's taken care of. I can make $17 an hour, which is substantially more in my country of origin. This is a good deal for everyone. Yeah.
I talked to a guy that was working in one of the dairies in the Magic Valley. And I've met with a lot of these people that are here, undocumented workers and stuff. And are they worried? Yeah, they're worried right now. I don't think they were at first because we were talking about going after the criminal element and all that kind of stuff. But I think they're getting worried about what might happen. But I talked to this one guy and I said, so how's your family doing? His family was his mother and father lived in Mexico and stuff. And he said, and I knew that he sent a lot of his money that he earned back to his family. And he says, oh, they're doing great. They're building a new house that they really needed and stuff like that with the money that I'm sending back to them and stuff. Isn't that what we want? These people to be able to improve their lives and their families' lives and other things.
And we win as well.
Yeah.
Like the United States wins by like one of the greatest secrets of the United States that I learned years ago is that we spend a very small percentage of our overall gross income on food. We're able to feed ourselves with substantially, I mean, some people too much, but we're able to feed ourselves with, I think it's like 16% of our gross income, which frees up the other 84% for consumer trends, right? Which is obviously what makes America's economic engine go round. That's a beautiful thing. If we increase the amount of money that it takes just to supply our basic staples and necessities through eliminating a portion of our workforce, that's going to be bad categorically for everyone from Doritos all the way to Apple. Like we won't have the money to spend on discretionary, you know, devices or things that the world and the United States has come to depend on.
Yeah, we've had a low cost food policy ever since World War II. And that's why we subsidize some things like crop insurance in the Farm Bill and a few things like that that are necessary. And by the way, we got to get a Farm Bill done. And some of our immigration reform is in the Farm Bill, but they can't go too far. Our challenge right now is trying to get through our Judiciary Committee, which we're working on right now. There's about 3 or 4 of us that have been working on this for a couple of years. And on the Republican side, and we got 3 or 4 Democrats that have been working together. So it's been a bipartisan effort to try to address this. And when you do this, you're talking with the employers, the ag industry.
Right.
You're talking with the farm workers union and other things. So you're talking with different organizations and trying to bring them together. And I was surprised that we got them all to agree on this bill that we've done, because a lot of them, both sides gave up a lot to get to this.
Man, we gotta have we have to have some kind of functional agreement that again, who loses? The United States citizen loses.
Yep.
Like I lose, my family loses. And, obviously workers lose as well. People from other countries lose. But at the end of the day, it's like, it's not good for anyone to stay in this position of flux and uncertainty. And again, we need the most secure borders possible. We need to honor our law enforcement obligations, but we also need, obviously a reasonable solution that benefits everybody.
Yeah. And I think one of the reasons we couldn't get it to the Senate is because it was during the period of time when the southern border was open. And when we saw all of these people coming across, while our ag immigration reform bill didn't have anything to do with that. In fact, I think would have helped that out. But when you said the word immigration, people thought about the southern border and what's happening down there. And so it was really hard to get anything done that dealt with that.
Well, I'm glad to hear you're optimistic about something
I am.
getting fixed.
It's got to be done. You cannot believe the impact this is going to have on agriculture if they start trying to take the undocumented workers in this country that have been here for years doing jobs that we won't do.